I just want to say to many of you who've reached out to me via phone, email, and on social media in the past weeks and months, how much you appreciate these virtual tours. Thank you very much for reaching out. It really does warm my heart to know that these presentations are valued and that we are making a difference in your lives during COVID and hopefully beyond. We're going to continue these as we all get back into traveling. I want to share a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know me. Again, my name is Mara Walsh and I'm in the United States. I live between Philadelphia and New York. I started leading physical tours with EF Tours as a Girl Scout leader, and I took girls, their families, and their friends on international destinations every summer. I still do that, but I have since expanded my physical travel program. Please note that even though my travel group started as girl travel tours, catering to girl trips, you'll start to see the name Getaway Travel Tours being used, which will help alleviate any confusion of who's eligible to join one of our tours. We welcome girls and guys, teenage through senior citizens. We do specialize in some adult-only tours so that you can travel with those in your same age group. Now, I lead tours of all different types. We will be getting back to touring very soon. And as a certified travel agent, I can also book you on a dream trip as part of a group or on your own. You can just reach out to me as you get started to think about physical travel, and I can help you get to where you want to be. In terms of the virtual tours, there's a couple reasons why I started this virtual tour series. I really wanted to support the tour director community during this time of travel restrictions where they have no work. And I really wanted to keep the excitement of travel alive for my travel group and extend that opportunity to those of you who have learned about us through friends and family and social media. We've done more than 30 and I think probably 40 tours in the last year since COVID has struck. If you'd like to access the recordings of those tours, they can be accessed on my website, which is girltraveltours.com. They are also on our Facebook page, as well as our YouTube channel. And we have several more tours that are slated to be shown in the future. And we have guides coming on from the south of France, ancient Rome, Sydney, Australia, Wales and Cornwall, Taj Mahal, Venice, Western Scotland, and Jerusalem. These have all been added to my website, so feel free to go up and register for one or as many as you'd like to join us for. And we're in the midst of planning our end of summer and early fall tours, so feel free to put in the chat if there's a destination that you are yearning to go to and we haven't covered yet. I know that we're going to be doing Argentina and Salzburg and some other destinations. So get ready for a full fall of more virtual tours. As long as you're interested in viewing these virtual tours, we will continue to present the presentations to you. I know many of you who found our virtual events through Facebook. Welcome. I know that you're online now and you're live streaming. So thank you for joining us. I just wanted to do a shout out and warn everybody about the fake pages and events and the copycat scammers out there that are trying to get you off of my page and onto a page that asks for a credit card. So please never give a credit card to enter a free virtual tour. There is plenty of warning. So if somebody asks for a credit card right when you enter, that is not a real site, and they are just copycat scammers. But you can always safely access our events through the Girl Travel Tours website and our Facebook page. Obviously, if you want to use your credit card or another means of payment later on to tip the guide, that is your prerogative. But I'm just trying to warn you about giving a credit card before you've been given a service, okay? Before we get going, I want to share with you a few ways that you can interact with us. Feel free to chat directly to me. And if you want to add a question in the Q&A link, that will be discussed after the presentation with the tour director, okay? As always, I think you realize that I like to put up a polling question as well, which gives us a little bit of background about those of you who are on our virtual tour presentation. What is your connection to a river cruise in the Danube? Tonight, we're going to go to the lower Danube, but you can answer for the entire Danube. I've been and love it. I have a trip booked. I plan to go in the future. I have no current plans, but I'm interested. And I'm solely interested in experiencing it virtually. I'll give you a minute to answer that. I'll answer it from my perspective. I have a trip booked. I actually have a group that we're going on a river cruise down the Danube. We still have spaces available left. So if there is some interest in anybody in our audience and you'd like to join us, we're going December of 2022 on a group river cruise down the Danube. So it looks like about 70% of the people have answered. So I'm going to close the poll. But it looks like the majority of our friends, about 41% of the travelers here tonight, have no current plans, but have an interest. But there's a pretty decent percent, about 25%, that plan to go in the future. So I think that gives us an understanding of your knowledge base on this, and certainly will help the tour director. I'm going to share the results so that you kind of get a sense of where people are. And I'm going to stop sharing. And as you know, if the poll box doesn't come back on your screen, you can just click on the top button and get it off your screen, okay? Okay, so as we all know, today's tour is a combination of a river cruise down the lower Danube, as well as a mystery. There's been a robbery on board our cruise ship. This will be a fun combination of sightseeing and sleuthing. This virtual tour is scheduled to be 90 minutes plus a Q&A, so I hope you're ready with your snack and a drink in hand. And anyone who's ever traveled with a group knows that a tour would not be complete without a fantastic tour director. A tour director is like a personal travel concierge who stays with your group from start to finish and shares a world of knowledge, manages all your travel plans, and makes sure your experience is full of learning, fun, and culture. They make sure it's stressless and easy to navigate. These are by far the most important people in our group. And if we're not traveling, these tour directors have not been working. So I will be sharing in the chat and during the Q&A how you can tip the tour director if you're so inclined. All of the tips go directly to the tour director once collected, minus the Zoom and operating expenses. I'm hoping this virtual tour will not only keep our desire to travel alive, but also allow a great tour director to do what she does best and share her knowledge and passion for travel and her region with all of us. Today, we are lucky to have back a tour director who has brought us a mystery on the Orient Express, as well as a Halloween tour of Romania. Georgiana is coming from Hungary, I believe near Transylvania today, for today's virtual mystery on the Danube. And if you're ready, Georgiana, you can join us and I'll hand over the event to you. Are you ready?
I am ready, Mara.
Awesome.
How are you? How is everyone doing tonight? Welcome to another mystery tour. All good?
All good.
All right. So I'm currently going to share my own screen from now on. But Mara, I have to tell you something.
Yes.
Sorry. I wanted to share some music. So I want to know if the music is too loud.
Ah, okay.
And
I find that you just have to watch out about talking over the music, because Zoom picks up one or the other, usually either the music or your voice. So I'll jump in and let you know if that's the case.
Yeah. And another thing would be that my name is Georgiana and I'm from Romania.
What did I say?
You said Hungary.
No, I said we're going to. I did. I'm so sorry. I know you're from Romania.
No, we are going to Hungary tonight. Yeah. Yes, we are traveling to Hungary, of course. But yeah, just a little bit of a brief introduction. So my name is Georgiana. I'm a Romanian tour guide. I have a small company. It's called Romanian Thrills, and I know you can see on your screen right now that I'm with my pointer. Okay, I turned it on. And I have done tours with Mara before. Probably some of you know me from our Myths and Legend tours that we've done for Halloween, or our Murder Mystery on the Orient Express, which we've done this past February. And after the Murder Mystery on the Orient Express, actually, we got this idea of continuing our mysteries because, you know, everybody wants to travel in the pandemic and lockdown, but a little bit of mystery, a little bit of intriguing story doesn't hurt at all. So here I am. I've created another mystery. This time I called it The Quest for the Transylvanian Gold because we are on a lower Danube River cruise. And a lower Danube River cruise, we'll definitely discuss about this later. It is linked to Romania and Transylvania if you wanted it to be. So for our tour tonight, I will center my presentation on three main topics. So we are going to talk about the Danube, first of all, and river cruising. Then we are going to have some travel and popular stops found all along the lower Danube and where you will stop if you ever go on a river cruise down the Danube. And of course, we have our robbery mystery. It's not going to be a murder mystery this time. We decided to switch it around. That's why we called it The Quest for the Transylvanian Gold. So now that that's settled, I have another thing for you tonight. If you've participated to my other tours, you know that I always like to engage you a little bit more with a quiz. And I will ask Mara to share the link of the quiz in the chat. You don't necessarily have to do it at the same time that I'm doing the presentation. You can do it at the end, but it's completely up to you. It's not a difficult quiz, but it does, it will make you feel more part of our story tonight. So if you're ready, I'm ready. I am going to start with a little bit of a background. We are going to talk about Danube River cruises. So first of all, we are going to speak about the Danube River, what type of cruises you can go on the Danube, what to expect from a river cruise, and most importantly, why go on a river cruise? Because I know a lot of you are interested in doing this, and I'm here to give you all the advantages and the good things that come out of river cruising. So first of all, I have here a map of Europe and especially of the Danube. The Danube River is predominantly contained in Eastern and Central Europe. It begins in Germany and the Black Forest Mountains, and then it runs for 1,770 miles or 2,850 kilometers along the European continent until it empties out into the Black Sea in Romania. All throughout history, the Danube has played a large role in how Eastern and Central Europe was settled. Another interesting fact is that the Danube crosses 10 different countries, which is more than any other river in the world. So these countries are Germany, Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Serbia, Bulgaria, obviously Romania, Ukraine, and Moldova, right here as it flows into the Danube Delta and eventually into the Black Sea. There were numerous major cities and capitals likewise positioned on the Danube, and there are 4 major European capitals that the Danube crosses. So let's see if you know them. I have one here, it's Vienna. The other one is Budapest. We have Belgrade, and the one that it's not here is Bratislava, is the capital of Slovakia. As you can see, the Danube has many, many tributaries, and these tributaries, it has more than 300. They can also be navigable, so you can go on cruises down there too. So the Danube is not the biggest river in Europe. It's the second biggest, but is the most popular because the first biggest river would be the Volga. And as you can see, it's mostly confined to Russia. So the Danube is the one that was made famous, popular by numerous musicians, you know, stories, and so on and so forth. So historically, the Danube was an exceptionally important river to the Greeks and Romans as well. I have here a piece of the column of Trajan. And when Roman rule was at its height during the reign of Julius Caesar, the Danube actually acted like the northern boundary of the empire. That means that Roman ships would always guard the waters, and eventually Roman cities cropped up all along the banks. Many of them became important cities of today, like the capitals that we've talked about earlier. And it's also the place where barbarians and the Romans fought each other for more than 400 years. But let's see, like, you know, the Danube by this name. The name Danube comes from the Latin Danuvius, but here in Eastern Europe, we know it by a different name. Donau, Dunai, Duna, Dunav, Dunărea in Romanian, and Dunai. So as you can see, different variations of pretty much the same root word, but don't be confused if you ever see these words instead of Danube. We're talking about the exact same river. So now we're going to talk about what types of cruises you can go in Europe. So on the rivers of Europe, there has always been one glaring issue that hold back river cruises line from being as innovative as they would have liked, and that would be the size. So the ships sailing the Danube, the Main, and the Rhine have to adhere to strict regulations governing how long, how wide, and how tall the ships can be built. This is done primarily so that river cruise ships can pass under bridges or shallow waters and through narrow locks. So that's why traditionally river cruises weren't that big and they could not offer as many amenities as they might have liked. So as you can see, you can go for cruises like in France, Germany, all throughout Europe on its main rivers. And when we speak about the Danube in particular, you can split it in two main segments. And that would be the Upper Danube, which runs from Germany, obviously, all the way to Budapest, and the Lower Danube segment, which starts in Budapest and finishes in Romania. Of course, if you're so inclined, you can go on a river cruise that starts in Germany, finishes in Budapest, and then go on a Lower Danube river cruise. But typically, when you go online and search for different cruise ship companies, that's how they separate the segments of the Danube. Tonight, we are going to talk about the Lower Danube section. And I wanted to share with you some companies, some lines that offer Danube River cruises, and particularly the Lower Danube River cruises. I am not affiliated with any of these companies. This selection has only come through my research. And of course, I had to keep it narrow because you don't have all the time in the world. And I chose only three. I chose Scenic, Ama Waterways, and Viking. So we are going to go, just to put things in perspective a little bit, just so you know what to expect if you ever choose a river cruise. And I'm going to start with the Scenic. They have a Black Sea Explorer. Scenic is actually an Australian company, was founded back in the 1980s. They nowadays have offices all over the world, and they do offer an extension to Transylvania as well. This particular boat is called the Scenic Opal, and you have a photo of it here on its Lower Danube segment. This company is specifically known for being an all-inclusive cruise, so everything catered for. Once you pay the trip, there's not much costs on top of that, but of course it's quite expensive. This is how one of their rooms overlooking the river would look like. Pretty comfortable. It would be nice to have a balcony like this overlooking the river and you're just chilling or having your breakfast in the morning. But the prices for a room can start at $4,400 and can go all the way up to $8,000 if you want a royal suite. The second one that I chose is Ama Waterways. They have a Lower Danube River cruise called Gems of Southeast Europe. And actually, Ama Waterways was founded in California. It's a rather recent company. It's much younger compared to other companies. It was founded in 2002, but they are known and very popular today for their ship called the Ama Magna. Is their newest ship, came out in 2019, was supposed to be all the rage, but of course the pandemic happened. But the Ama Magna is twice the width of traditional European river ships. They offer more personal space, more unique dining venues, and more leisure opportunities. And that really redefined the river cruise experience. Most of the accommodations are more spacious compared to other companies. It is the largest and the widest ship on the Danube, and it has the ability to hold up to 194 guests in 97 rooms. The majority of the rooms measure more than 27 square meters. That's like more than 300 square feet. And that's an impressive amount of space for river cruises. However, because of its size, the Ama Magna is only confined to the lower Danube, as she would be too wide to make the full transit from Amsterdam to Budapest. However, you can still sail like Germany, Austria, Hungary. It is still possible. Of course, an extension to Transylvania is possible boarding on Ama Magna, and it's the ship that I chose today for my robbery mystery too. The people that you find aboard the Ama Magna are typically from North America. English is largely spoken on board, and their age is 55 in the 55 plus range. They're well traveled, they're curious, and of course, this ship appeals to them because it's very much focused on wellness, on amenities, and they offer a large selection aboard. This is how the interior looks like, really lavishly decorated, very quirky, very modern at the same time. And aboard the ship, if you're not relaxing, if you're not having a massage, you can also go on tours in every destination, which is why we're traveling tonight. And this is why I prepared this itinerary for you with stops in every countries. I really, really like their library, their lounge area. You will get personalized service from a highly trained cruise manager aboard their ship. And so many other cool things that, can only be felt on this type of a cruise. The prices are not, I would say are middle range. They start at $3,700, can go up to $14,000, depending on what additions you add, what type of extensions. Of course, they cater to more luxurious experiences as well. So completely up to you, but completely worth it. Okay, so I will...
Georgiana, before you get into it, will you be sharing with me when I should share the quiz, or can they start to look at it at this time?
Yeah, you can share it whenever you want. Just have it in the chat. And if anyone wants to start filling it right now, they're more than welcome to do so.
Okay, great. Just stay away from Google. Be honest and fair, everybody, okay?
It's not going to be that difficult, I promise. Okay, so I have a video that I would like to share. I would like to optimize it. Okay, great. Please let me know if it works properly. I'm sorry, did it cut out? Okay. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you, as it was like you need to put into a video what I'm trying to say in words. I did is the music fine right now? Perfect. The third company that I want to tell you about tonight is Viking, and I'm sure you've heard of Viking. Viking is highly popular in Romania. I've seen lots and lots of buses from people that travel throughout Transylvania after they were aboard a Viking cruise ship. They have their headquarters in LA. They started off as Russian in 1997. They appeal to the masses, and they do a little bit longer trips. This is their interior. As I said, they very simple, straight to the point. They offer extensions in cities, like at the beginning or at the end. Say you start in Budapest, but you want to spend extra days in Budapest, you can do that. Or if you want to spend some days in Bucharest this time, you can do that too. This would be one of their rooms. Their prices will start around 3,000 and go up to 7,000, but be aware that this is not an all-inclusive price. Once you start adding up packages, tours, and stuff like that, the price will go significantly up. This is how their restaurant looks like. And now that you know what to expect from a cruise ship and what to find inside, let's see what you can expect in terms of experiences. So European river cruising takes place in what it is a maximum 38 foot by 410 foot vessel. So the dimensions dictate what you can do. There's also like in between 100 and 200 passengers on each cruise ship. So the amenities will vary, but the standard on most river cruises are a restaurant. They will all have a bar, they will all have a lounge, a library like the one that you're looking at right now, maybe a fitness center, a few pieces of fitness equipment, possibly a sauna. The more fancier one would have a pool on their deck, maybe a whirlpool. Increasingly in Europe, the ships have been adding elevators and smaller alternative dining lounges at the aft of the ship for the people that are looking for more private, more intimate experiences as well. If you're into grilling, some of them will offer grilling as well. So why not? Another thing that you can do while river cruising is to go on tours, but you have to know that river cruising consists mainly of 3 activities: dining, cruising, and touring. The majority of the meals that are served on board in the restaurant or in the alternative dining areas are exquisite, and you will only have your meals aboard the cruise ship. When you cruise from one place to the other, you'll normally travel at night. But that doesn't happen if it's in a specifically scenic location, and we'll see when that happens a little bit later. You have the opportunity to relax and enjoy the deck, and also sailing in a specific spot. The main purpose of river cruising, though, it's to move from town to town and from city to city and ports along the way. There's a fair amount of walking on a river cruising. I know that sounds weird, but you know, while you have those informative walking tours, you have plenty of time to spend like in the cities during the day. Some river cruises will also carry bicycles, so you can go on a bicycle tour, and that will be a much easier way to go on longer distances, or especially if the countryside is it's particularly scenic, a bike definitely helps out to the experience. How's the food? I told you, exquisite dining. They have lots of chefs aboard. They go overboard with how well and how good quality the food is. And you have to know that they will strive to offer you specialties and food found along the countries that you're currently sailing on. So it's not going to be just random classical dishes. They will cater to the specific dishes of the cultures that you are exploring with them. So you're good. On our river cruise tonight, on our tour, you will experience 5 intriguing and complex countries. In addition to Hungary and Romania, as we've mentioned in the beginning, you'll also visit Croatia, Serbia, and Bulgaria. These destinations are still emerging from decades of communist rule and recent regional warfare, which continues to be part of the complex political and geographical reality of the area. So it'll make up for a great experience for you, especially if you've spent your time visiting Western Europe. Eastern Europe definitely offers that intriguing experience and authentic locations that you are looking for. So as I've said, tonight you need to imagine that you're river cruising with me, as I will take you through these 5 countries, and we'll tell you about a robbery mystery in the meantime to help you pass the time better. So we start in Hungary. This map will just help us locate us. We start in Budapest. That's where all Danube River cruises start. And then we go all the way down, crossing Hungary and going all the way through Hungary and crossing Croatia. So the capital of Hungary is Budapest, and it's, as I said, the place of the departure for our lower river cruise. This is a medieval city, but it has officially been unified in 1873. It was given the name Budapest after united 3 different smaller towns. Sometimes people would refer to it as Pest Buda. But today we know it as Budapest, and this is the scenic, the image that everyone knows about the Danube and Budapest. I'm not going to linger any longer on Budapest because I know that Mara has a different virtual tour with full details only about the city. So I encourage you to watch that if you're interested for more. But I will tell you more about our about the Hungarian Parliament building, which is the most iconic building you will find along the lower Danube portion of the river cruising. It was one of the finest examples of Gothic revival, Renaissance revival architecture in the world today. It was inaugurated in 1904 and is the creation of an architect called Imre Steindl. I included his name here just so I get his pronunciation right. Ironically, he went blind before its completion, leaving him unable to appreciate his finished masterpiece. These banks of the Danube are actually part of the UNESCO World Heritage because of the amount of historical buildings found all along it. But the Hungarian Parliament is still a functioning law-making body up to this day. Just 1 second. Do you see something strange on my... Okay, I thought there was something strange on my screen. Inside the Parliament building, we have one symbolic number, and that's number 96. It symbolizes the year of settlement in Hungary. This is also incorporated in the design of the building because the dome is 96 meters high. The steps of the main staircase are also 96. It remains the seat of the National Assembly. It still holds debates attended by the Prime Minister and his cabinet. It stretches across an area of 18,000 square meters. The building has almost 700 rooms, 28 entrances, 29 staircases, and 10 courtyards. All these numbers make it the third largest administrative building in the world, with the second one being in Romania is the Palace of the Parliament, and the first one obviously is the Pentagon. Since we're in Budapest, I like to always include a food stop. And of course, you know that their traditional dish, their national dish is the Hungarian goulash, which is actually a hearty beef stew. Typically cooked in Romania too. We like to cook it, especially in the countryside in Transylvania. And you will find a cauldron this big that can feed a village. It's delicious. It's more of a winter food, but of course you can enjoy it anytime you want. And we have finally arrived at the first first chapter of our murder mystery today. So I did speak of a robbery. We are looking for an ancient gold bracelet. Someone stole it aboard the cruise ship, and it's your job to find it at the end, to find the person that stole the bracelet. So if we're ready, we're going to start with our mystery, with our story. You have here the Ama Magna, the ship that I told you I chose for my story, in front of the house of the Hungarian Parliament. I want you to imagine that you're traveling with me. I am also the narrator. I will always share details that the characters are not talking about. And if you've watched The Orient Express before, you'll know that I've supported my story with comic book pages, but of course I couldn't include all the details. So I'm here to answer verbally to any other questions you might have. So we're aboard the ship. You see people going up typically when you board the ship, where you go for the check-in, and then you will leave your bags because they will later be brought to your room. At the beginning, you're just offered a drink, invited to lounge on the deck and wait for your room to get ready. And aboard the ship, we meet a familiar character. His name is Tudor Barbu. He's a Romanian count that we met before on our Orient Express mystery. And this time he's aboard the Lower Danube River cruising. Being a Romanian count, you know, he travels for pleasure. And this time he travels to meet a friend. So his name is Tudor Barbu, and the steward, here's your room, Mr. Barbu. We hope everything is to your liking. Thank you, I'm sure it is. Please make sure my bags are brought up on time too. Mr. Barbu meets with the friend that he was supposed to aboard the ship, and his name is Adam Carter. This is our second character of our story. He's a British archaeologist. He's passionate about ancient civilization, and he is traveling to Romania to see the newly discovered Dacian artifact. The Dacians, I have spoken about them before in our other tours. They're actually Romanian ancestors. They lived 2,000 years ago, and they were conquered by the Romans. The Dacian artifact, this is based on reality. We've recently uncovered a matrix that was used to mold different pieces of gold. So that's why our character, Adam Carter, the archaeologist, travels to Romania, because it's such an intriguing discovery, especially from the Dacians, who are considered pretty much barbarians, so to say, because they didn't have a written language. We don't have that many historical evidence about their culture, so it's always exciting to find something in that area. So he plans to go to Romania to visit the archaeological site. He's also friends with Mr. Barbu. You know, the noblemen always have the best friends, and as they have crossed paths on different occasions before. So Adam, long time since we last saw each other, my friend. If it isn't the infamous Mr. Barbu, such a pleasure to see you again. Let's catch up at dinner tonight. Mr. Barbu, of course, is ahead of him. I already told my steward to make a reservation for tonight at 7 p.m. I'll let you settle in and see you later. With this, the ship leaves Budapest, sails away, and this is where the first chapter finishes. And our second one starts later on at dinner. After the cruise ship departs, we see Adam Carter and Mr. Barbu discussing. This time, Mr. Barbu, so what brings you to Romania, Adam? Your letter was a little bit mysterious. Adam says, you know, I was always curious about your ancestors, the Dacians. Their culture fascinates me, and there has been a new discovery which I'm curious to see. However, there's a lot of controversy that surrounds this research, so you are the only one that knows I'm here. A little bit mysterious. Why am I not surprised? But who doesn't like a bit of a challenge? Best of luck, my friend. Mr. Barbu is very laid back, you know, he has seen it all. At the same time, we meet two new characters, and Mr. Barbu says, oh, I didn't know they were also aboard the ship. We see Billy Jackson this time. He's a Texas-born billionaire with one of the best oil companies in the country. He's in his 50s, he's married, he has 3 kids, but he enjoys spending time with his mistress in Europe, which he justifies as work trips. He is always trying to find new ways to spend his money. So he decided to invest in artifacts. So we can say he was like an art aficionado, but he doesn't necessarily understand a lot about them. He doesn't necessarily care for the history behind them. Recently, he was approached by a private collector to purchase a heavy gold bracelet, which supposedly comes from a lost civilization somewhere in Eastern Europe, or at least that's what he thinks. The collectors say he didn't pay much attention to the details. He decided to gift this bracelet to his mistress, Sandra, for their 2nd year anniversary, which they are going to spend aboard a Danube River cruise through Eastern Europe. So that's the background of Billy Jackson. This is obviously Sandra, his mistress, and the gold bracelet that he has given her. The characters meet, Billy shakes hands with Mr. Barbu because they obviously knew each other. How do you do? Good to see you again. Of course, how could the pleasure is all mine, I assure you. You must remember Sandra Baggins, my girlfriend. Of course, how could I forget such a face? Meet my friend, the archaeologist, Adam Carter. So in here we find out the story of Sandra. Sandra is actually born in New York. She used to work in a casino, and that's where she met Billy, the billionaire Jackson. She's in her 30s. She's beautiful. She's blonde. She's poor at the same time. She got a very interesting nickname, which relates to her last name, Baggins. I don't know if you've ever watched Lord of the Rings, and if you know of the character Bilbo Baggins. Well, she had a very nerdy colleague that called her Bimbo Baggins. So that's how actually Mr. Barbu remembered her from that casino, because Mr. Barbu has met Billy in the past when he was doing business with him, with his company, and has traveled to the United States. Billy liked Sandra from the beginning. He decided he had to have her. Right. So he was one time in the casino, he was spending time with his good friend, Mr. Barbu, and Sandra was there. He looked at her. He was like, wow, I need to have her. He does give her lavish gifts, pays for everything, but he won't ever give her cash. We see a close-up of Sandra and the gold bracelet that she's received from Billy. How are you? She tells Mr. Barbu. And now that they leave to get settled at their own table, Mr. Barbu turns to Adam and he says, funny to see them here. Let me tell you their story. So you already know their story because I shared it with you earlier. And we leave Mr. Barbu, that's how our second scene finishes. We leave them talking about the two new characters. With this, we leave Hungary, we leave Budapest, and we arrive in a different country, in Croatia. Now, the thing is that in Croatia, you're not going to pass any major cities. You're not going to pass down the Dalmatian coast. The Danube only crosses the far east side of the country. But the main city that you can see during the lower Danube River cruise is called Osijek. We'll see it a little bit later. This area that the Danube crosses the Croatia through, it's called Europe's Amazon. It's a crossroad, if I can say it like that, between the Mura, the Drava, and the Danube rivers that stretches across Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, and Hungary, and Serbia. Jointly, they make up one of the most species and habitats rich landscapes of the European continent. Because of this, because it's a wildlife-rich, pristine wilderness, it's been dubbed Europe's Amazon. So you are going to cross marginally next to this area. And of course, when you stop in Croatia, you have the opportunity to visit this location. So we were talking about Osijek, the city that you can visit while crossing when the cruise stops in Croatia. It's the fourth largest city in the country. The population is not that big; it's only 100,000 people. It lies in the eastern portion of the Slavonia region. It borders Hungary and Serbia. The first mention of the city dates back to the year 1196, so in the 12th century, but people had been living on the land here for centuries before that. It's located on the Drava River, just upstream of the Drava-Danube confluence. Unfortunately, this city has been badly damaged after the world wars, and now it's mostly restored. There's a certain buzz, a subtle buzz of energy in the city. It's full of forward-thinking and passionate residents. They work to bring this town back to its former splendor, and just walking through it gives you that feeling of walking through any other European city. You'll see abandoned spaces, but you also see events, a lot of younger people trying to get involved in the community. This is a view from above. It's actually the port. You see the cruises where they normally come in. And of course, if you're a lover of wine, if you're a lover of nature, you'll also be able to enjoy kilometers of walking paths and just bicycle routes all along the banks of Croatia. I wanted to include also a winery that you can visit close by. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, and if there are any Croatians watching me, do correct me if I'm wrong. I would say it's Engingi Winery. They're proud to showcase their fabulous wines and wine culture. This has been part of their family for more than 117 years. And they produce wine, of course, from whites to reds and rosés. They do fabulous vineyard and wine cellar tours. They do wine tasting and, of course, gastronomical offers, as they are part of the excitement and offerings of doing a wine tour. This is just a typical Kolkata platter. You've seen it. It's very, very traditional in Eastern Europe. I wouldn't necessarily call it just Croatian, because meaty Kolkats are part of, just our culture. So typically they're made out of pork. Of course, you can have different types of meat. And this would be just fresh sheep's cheese. And here, just a Croatian feast. The food offering in Osijek, in the city, is off the charts. They have hearty soups, roasted game meats, cured meats, tasty pasta. And the best part is that everything is made homemade and fresh. The thing is that you can obviously eat while you're out on your walking tours, but the food on the cruise will also reflect this as well. So in Croatia, back to our robbery mystery, the people aboard the ship go out on a bicycle trip. They take advantage of the bicycle routes. And this time we see Billy and Sandra riding a bike. And Billy says, "The things I do for you, Sandra. Never thought I would ride a bike in my life." Sandra chuckles and she says, "A little movement never hurts." And then Billy says, "By the way, I like how that bracelet looks on you. I expect you to wear it every night from now on." Mara doesn't really appreciate the tone, so she frowns a little bit. She says, "Of course, honey, how can you tell me where you got it from?" And now we find out that Billy is a rather demanding person, and Sandra doesn't like this very much. She's also not in a position to argue, so that's why she kind of swallows her words. If she doesn't like something, she just doesn't say it. She'll just have to obey. But Billy doesn't answer the question because he falls off his bike, and he's more used to his supercars, so he falls off. He's obviously pissed about it, so he says, "Damn bikes, that's it. I'm going back to the ship." So he rides back to the ship, walking beside his bicycle. Sandra tries to go for him. He said, wait for me. But then we have another character, our fifth character this time of the story. Her name is Mira Varga. Hi there, my name is Mira Varga. So Mira Varga is actually a Hungarian white witch. She's in her 50s. She specializes in white magic, future predictions, and good luck charms. But lately, unfortunately, she has been struggling to keep her business afloat and to find new customers. A friend of hers suggested why don't you go on a river cruise? You never know who you might find. These cruises are full of rich people, endless dramas. So she's bound to find something good for her to keep her business going. She doesn't know anyone on board, but because she was on this bicycle route, she noticed the bracelet on Sandra's hand. So she said, "You know what? These might be the perfect customers," and they're already fighting. So she saw the opportunity and went for it. This is where our Croatia chapter finishes, our third chapter. And from Croatia, we are going to Serbia. Do let us know in chat if you've ever been to Serbia, or if Serbia is in your travel plans in the future. You know, Serbia is actually not part of the European Union, and sometimes people overlook it, but it's actually a very, very interesting country. And one of the best ways to travel to Serbia hassle-free would be on a river cruise. So Serbia is known for two major cities. That will be Novi Sad and Belgrade, and both of them are travel stops on your cruise ships. As you can tell from the many cruise ships stopped all along the banks here in the port city. We're going to start with Novi Sad. Novi Sad is the second largest city in Serbia, obviously after Belgrade. It's the capital of the autonomous province of Vojvodina. It lies on the banks of the Danube River, and the city faces the northern slopes of Fruška Gora. If you don't know how that's spelled, you have it here. Fruška Gora is actually a region. Since the time of the Romans, grapes from the mountain Fruška wine route have been transformed into beautiful wines. Around 1700 years have passed since the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius planted the first grapevine on the slope of this mountain. It was the village of Nestin. And according to some historic scripts, he was overthrown by his soldiers, since at the time of peace, he made them clear out the forests and plant vineyards. Now, there's specific wine produced in this area, and it's called Bermet wine. They are the pride and joy of winemaking in this region. It's a dessert wine. It's made with herbs from the local winemakers, and these local winemakers were famous all throughout European ports. And they say that bottles of the Bermet wine was also found aboard the Titanic. It's assumed that it was included in the Titanic's wine list because of that. So yeah, it's an interesting piece of history for sure. Also in Novi Sad, we find Petrovaradin Fortress. It was nicknamed the Gibraltar of the Danube. It's located on the right side of the bank of the Danube, and the fortress was laid down here in 1692, so 17 centuries. But there has been traces of it being settled even before that, like tens of thousands of years before. Today, well, actually not today, but before the pandemic, the fortress was home to one of the major music festivals in Europe. It was called Exit Festival. It's an annual summer music festival. It has grown to be the biggest one in Southeastern Europe. And another cool attraction here in Novi Sad is the reversed clock. If you notice, if you look closely, the minute and hour hand on the clock tower are reversed. And the reason for this, so the small hand will show the minutes and the big hand will show the hours. It was created for the fishermen along the Danube River to see the time from a long distance. It's one of the landmarks of Petrovaradin Forest. It was gifted by Maria Theresa in the 18th century. After Novi Sad, the next destination on your route is Belgrade. This city is the capital, is the largest city in Serbia. It's located on the confluence of the rivers Sava and the Danube, and it's at the crossroads of the Pannonian Plain and the Balkan Peninsula. Belgrade is actually one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in Europe and in the world. One of the most important prehistoric cultures of Europe, the Vinca culture, evolved within Belgrade area in the 6th millennium before Christ. And Traco-Dacians also inhabited this region. After 300 BC, Celts started settling the city. Eventually, it was conquered by Romans, and of course, it was settled by Slavs in the year 500 after Christ. So a very, very tumultuous history, all sorts of cultures mixing together. This is the confluence of the Danube with the river Sava. It kind of looks like a heart in the middle if you look closely. Belgrade has been fought over in 115 wars. It was razed completely to the ground 44 times, including by Attila the Hun, who had his way with the area in 442. And in 1500, it was conquered by the Ottomans. After this year, there was a huge tug of war between Ottoman and the Austro-Hungarian empires. They took their turns in destroying the city. But the good part about this is that they left behind a very cosmopolitan legacy, which the city enjoys today. And for another fortress that's a cool attraction point in Belgrade is the Kale Megdan Fortress. It was initially built in the 1st century as a palisade with earth walls around it. It was developed over the years as a Roman stronghold. Then it was turned into a Byzantine castle in the 6th and 7th century. It became the medieval capital of Serbia in the 13th and 15th century. And finally, The Austrian and the Ottoman took their turns in turning it into an artillery fortification. It's a unique and cultural historical complex within the Kalemegdan Park. And it's just an amazing location to watch the sunset when you're in Belgrade. It was built part of a defense system of the city. It was meant to protect Belgrade from the Ottoman invasion. After the Ottoman invasion that happened in 1456, and it was actually another. This battle was led by a Romanian, let's call it Transylvanian ruler of that time, John Huniadi, who was ruler of Transylvania, as I've mentioned, and ruled from a very nice castle, Corvin's Castle. If you want to find out more about the stories of this castle, you can follow my tour with Mara, Myths and Legends. I know she has a recording free for you to access. This is the spot where you can watch the sunset from on Kalemegdan Park. And another really nice aspect of the Danube in Belgrade is that they don't have sea, so they've turned the Danube into their summer, into their sea. So what you see along the banks of the Danube are actually beaches. And obviously post-pandemic, this area is called Ada Țiganlia. After the pandemic, this is how the beaches look like during summertime. I know when I look at this photo, it's actually really hard to imagine the situation nowadays. And I know it's crazy, but you wouldn't imagine seeing this many people in the same place now. And it's crazy. It just shows how much our world has changed in such a short amount of time. They do have another really can be a pretty controversial aspect, but close to a regular family beach, there's a nudist beach, and it's only separated by some really short bushes. So I was pretty surprised when I saw that in Belgrade. But you know, it's Eastern Europe for you, not a lot of prejudice around. Had to share a snack while in Belgrade. You have to try pleškavica. It doesn't necessarily have to be only in Belgrade. It's a Serbian snack food, typical snack food. Of course, when you look at it, it looks just like a burger, just like a typical burger, but it's more, I call it the Eastern version of a burger because it's just meat, bread, mayo or sauces, and you can really taste the freshness of the meat. It's not as processed, it's still minced meat. It just has a different flavor to me. So in Belgrade, we have our ship. Back to our robbery mystery. Everyone has arrived in Belgrade. They go out, they go on a walking tour. However, two people didn't leave the ship this time. We have Mr. Adam Carter, who meets Mr. Billy Jackson at the bar. Adam says, "I wanted to ask you, where did you buy Sandra's bracelet from?" And Billy replies, "It was a private collector. He approached me. He said it was from somewhere in about Eastern Europe. I honestly have no idea about its history. He said it was priceless, so I bought it." Mr. Barbu joins in the conversation and he says, "What are you men up to? Care if I join you for a drink?" "Not at all. I was asking Mr. Jackson about the wonderful bracelet I saw on Sandra." Mr. Billy replies, "Have you met the bartender yet? He makes some of the best cocktails in the world." And all of them meet our sixth character, who is Mihai Lupu. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Barbu. Nice to meet you, Mr. Carter. Mihai Lupu at your service." Mihai Lupu actually looks familiar to Mr. Barbu, but he cannot quite figure out where he has seen Mihai before. And then we see Mihai by himself, cleaning a glass and saying, "The rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer." And I'm going to share his story with you now. He's actually Romanian. He's a Romanian bartender aboard the cruise ship. He's originally from Hunedoara, which is a county in Romania. He's proud of his Dacian name. His last name, Lupu, actually means wolf in English. He's in his 40s. All his life, he has worked in hospitality across the world to make ends meet for his parents back home. He has a love-hate relationship with rich people that he serves, mainly because he spent that much time in hospitality. Sometimes he likes them, but then he remembers that all his life, he has seen the rich people only getting richer and the poor only getting poorer. So at the bar, we see Mr. Barbu and Mr. Adam talking again. And Mr. Adam says, Tudor, are you good friends with Mr. Jackson? And Mr. Barbu, he replies, we used to do business together. Why? Well, let me tell you. And I am going to share with you now the story of the Transylvanian gold bracelet, the one that you saw Sandra wearing. And it's the story that Mr. Carter wants to share with Mr. Barbu. 1 second.
Bucharest, the capital of Romania, 2011.
Do let me know if you hear the sound, because
13 golden spirals are put on display at the country's National History Museum. Nothing like this has ever been presented to the world.
They have a very strong elemental force to them.
The Romanian nation is mesmerized. It's the country's biggest archaeological mystery of the last 100 years. Some attribute the golden spirals to the Dacian king Decebală, who ruled nearly 2,000 years ago from the mountains of Transylvania. Are they jewelry or sacred objects under the spell of an ancient curse?
I-am brațul murit. Și el a găsit comori și de la comori s-o și tras.
Or are the golden spirals sophisticated fakes?
Sunt cel mai simplu de falsificat.
The first reaction was, they can only be fakes.
Does history have to be rewritten? Or has the world been deceived by one of the biggest art hoaxes of recent times?
all right. So the Transylvanian gold bracelets are actually real. If you want the link to the documentary, The Hunt for the Transylvanian Gold, I'll leave it tomorrow to share in her follow-up email. It's a 50-minute long documentary. It's completely free. You can watch it on YouTube. It's part of the, I think it was done by the History Channel, or it doesn't really matter, but it's about some gold bracelets. They were found here in the region of Transylvania, and they were sold to private collectors around the world. It took the Romanian government a long time to unearth them, to actually bring them back to Romania. They had to buy them from private collection houses because it's our national treasure in the end. They say that there are 24 of these bracelets in total, but only 13 of them have been found, and there are still 11 of them completely missing. Some people attribute them with great powers, with spiritual powers. The Dacians, obviously, they had their gods, and they buried these bracelets at in the ground, at the roots of the trees, and they would form different geometrical shapes around their capitals, along their settlements, because they were thought, because of their spiral shape, they were thought to bring in the energies of the ground, of the earth, and form a protective circle around them. So mystical powers, they're attributed with mystical powers. And we have our witch, our Hungarian witch, Mira Varga, who hears the story of of Adam Carter, the story that he tells to Mr. Barbu about these bracelets, and she starts wondering. She's intrigued by these magical properties. I told you, she was losing business, she was losing her touch, she wasn't that good at predicting anymore, and she thought that if she had one of these bracelets, then that might help her boost her powers. Another aspect here, why Mr. Carter was so secretive to Mr. Barbu, because when he saw Sandra's bracelet, the golden bracelet, he knew that it was illegal for him to actually display it in public. They are searched by the secret services all around the world, and that's why he inquired, like, how did you get your hands on this bracelet? Who sold it to you? Like the private collector that was trying to get rid of it, because he knew he was under investigation. He found Mr. Jackson, the naive billionaire that had a lot of money and didn't care a lot about to do his research. So that's why he was intrigued. And this is where we finish our Serbia chapter. And from Serbia, we are going to Romania. And this is the scenic part of the Danube that crosses the Iron Gates Gorges. And this is where the river continues sailing during the day. It's just an amazing ride all along the river banks. And of course, I would like to share with you another video. There you go. So we are in Romania this time. This is how it feels like to sail through the Iron Gates. These are people aboard the river cruise. And the video says it all. You are sailing for more than 84 miles. You're passing from Serbia to Romania. This is the longest string of gorges in Europe, and you want to be awake for this. You want to take as many photos as you can. It's the narrowest section of the Iron Gates, and of course, you need to see our own version of Mount Rushmore, King Decebal. The Tricule Castle, it's ruins. You can only see its ruins that pop out of the river water, and we'll find out why. And it's only the towers that you can see today, not the whole citadel. So obviously, you've seen the head of Decebal. I know you've seen it in the other video as well. And as I said, our very own version of Mount Rushmore. This is Europe's largest rock sculpture. Is the main attraction of any boat ride down the Danube. Spoilers. And it was made actually fairly recently. It was done between 1994 and 2004. It was commissioned by a local tycoon and is the tallest rock relief in Europe. It stands at 55 meters tall. That's 180 feet in height, and it's 25 meters wide. That's 82 feet. The statue was placed across an ancient memorial plaque. It was that was carved in rock on the Serbian side. That's called Tabula Traiana, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. Not many people know that this statue was never finished. You see that maybe missing its head. The businessmen who founded this rock sculpture, it was done by our very own local billionaire that decided he wanted to bring praise to our ancestors. So he built this rock statue there. He funded it up until his death, but it was left unfinished. You can see the portrait of Decebal, but what you're missing, it's the Phrygian cap, the Dacian cap that they were very well known for. If you have money, if you feel like finishing a statue in Romania and have your name seen across the Iron Gates, you're more than welcome to come here and finish it off. You can give it a different shape if you want to. A short boat journey away. So typically for Romanians, if they want to visit the Danube, spoilers, and if they want to see Decebal's rock statue, they have the opportunity to see different attractions along the banks. From a river cruise, you can see the same exact attraction. One of it is Veteran Cave. It was called after the Austrian soldiers that once harassed Turkish soldiers. They were shipping on the river. The entrance is actually hidden behind a veil of trees. You cannot see anything from the outside. You might not even notice it from a boat, but the inside is absolutely astonishing. It's huge. They have light from a single ray of sunlight that pierces the roof of the cave. The name comes from an Austrian general by the name of Veteran. Due to the military interest of this cave, it was the first cartographic cave in Europe. You can still see numerous inscriptions up to this day. The problem is that the lower levels are flooded, and this is the only level still accessible, and only by boat. Another cave, the largest cave on the Danube Canyon, is called Ponikova Cave. It's accessible from boat. You go through this little entrance, and once the boat leaves you there, you can go by foot, cross the whole cave, and come out through the surface. During communist times, there were a lot of Romanians that tried to escape the regime. They tried to escape the communist regime by swimming across to the Serbian border. They were looking for the relative freedom that Yugoslavia was offering, because Romania was pretty closed off during communism. It was similar to North Korea today. Unfortunately, some succeeded, some did not. This is the inside of Ponikova Cave. And this is how it looks when you come out the other side. So you enter on the water side, and there's this leather that looks a little bit shaky. So I wouldn't recommend you go there if you're not very confident in your climbing skills. One interesting story I would like to share. How do you think the people would swim across the Danube? So you have to imagine that back in the days when they were doing this, it might have happened. Well, you know, it's a huge body of water either way. There's currents, there's a high chance you can get drowned. So they tied CO2 tubes to their bodies, and then they just cut the top so that it will project them across the river for a little bit. So, you know, some survived, some didn't, but it was just desperate measures, you know, in a desperate regime. Going further up, you see the Iron Gates Dam. All river cruises will pass through these dams. It was built in the 1960s. It's a massive lock and dam. They wanted to control the speed of the river and to make navigation safer. So particularly here between the Iron Gates gorges, the Danube was very, very aggressive. There were strong currents, really speedy water, because you have this big body of water coming in, and then it will narrow all of a sudden in between the gorges. So it was just physics. Before the Danube River was dammed, commercial boats transferring goods dreaded navigating the rapids of the narrow Iron Gate sections of the river because of this. After the completion of the dam, the river rose by 130 feet. This was one of the biggest projects at the time. It was a joint venture between Romania and Yugoslavia. It was the 10th largest hydroelectric power station in the world back in 1972, but it made the river more navigable. However, the region that we call now the Danube's boilers, it was called boilers before the construction of the dam because of the current. It looked like the water was boiling. Today it doesn't really look like that, because obviously the water is much, much higher. This is one of the largest hydropower plants still today in Europe. Not only does the project produce hydroelectricity, but as I said, it facilitates commercial trades much better. What they had to sacrifice in order to build this dam was the Adakale Island. This is just a drawing from before the completion of the dam. It does not exist today. It's completely sunk underneath the water. It was like an island of, like a Turkish island in the middle of the Danube. It was 2 kilometers long, 1 kilometer wide. It had a mosque. It remained inhabited by the Turkish population that was using it for their trade. It was a flourishing community. Unfortunately, when they decided to build the dam, they had to move everyone out. And what's curious is that they had a Vauban-looking citadel. It was the second one of this type in Romania. The other one being Alba Iulia, another citadel that lives up to this day. The population here lived primarily on the cultivation of tobacco and fishery, and later on tourism. In its last years of existence, the island population ranged between 600 to 1,000 inhabitants. But yeah, all of them were relocated back to Constanța or to Turkey. So I talked to you earlier about Tabula Traiana. It's a plaque on the Serbian side. It tells us of the completion of Trajan's military road along the Danube. It commemorates the final defeat of Decebalus, the king that we saw on the rock statue, by Trajan, the Roman emperor, in the year 105. This is the moment when the Roman Empire absorbs the Dacian kingdom. So Romania in ancient times was known as the Dacia province. The Dacians, our ancestors, were conquered by Trajan. So because for him, this was such an important accomplishment, he celebrated. He built Trajan's column that you can see today in Rome. And of course, he had to put this plaque to commemorate the event. This is the reason that our Romanian billionaire wanted to put King Decebalus right across from it, kind of like them standing in a fight, like the Romans versus Dacians. But when the plans for the hydro plant came out, they decided, well, they had to do something because the water rose. They could either leave the plaque underneath or they could just move it. So you can see it's been cut out of the rock and moved, similar to what they did in Egypt. I don't know if you know of the temple Abu Simbel. It was also relocated when they built their dam there. So do let me know if you've ever seen the temple in Egypt. It's the similar procedure, much smaller scale, because the plaque is definitely not as big as the Egyptian temples. Another feat of engineering, very important of those times, was the bridge of Apollodorus over the Danube. This was a military road that was built by the Romans. And this is how they managed to conquer Dacia. They needed a way to have their troops cross the river with minimum casualties. So Emperor Trajan commissioned one of the best architects in the world at the time, and that was Apollodorus of Damascus. He originated in Roman Syria. He was Nabatean. He was part of a civilization that built impressive ancient cities. And if you know Petra, you would understand what I'm talking about. This bridge was almost 1 mile long. And even though the Romans destroyed it when they left Dacia 200 years later, it was the longest bridge in the world for over 1,000 years. So if the Romans had not destroyed the bridge, I'm sure it would have been in perfect, well, almost perfect condition up to today. To put things in perspective, this was the only bridge built over the Danube until late 1900s. Today, you can only see its leg. It's on the Romanian side, further up from the Iron Gates. It's also an archaeological park in the area. And another, you might recognize this face. It's something that you don't necessarily do from a river cruise, but it's worth mentioning. There's a beautiful hike that you could do on top of these of the Iron Gates gorges, on top of these mountains. It's called Ciucaru Mare hike. It overlooks the beautiful bays of the Danubes, and this in particular is the place where they call Danube's boilers. It's a pity not to take advantage of this amazing views. In the area, something particular to only this region and to Dobrogea, to the Black Sea, is that we have fig trees. We produce a lot of figs, but our figs are green and we call them smokina. These are the trees found all along the banks. There's a specific village that has more than, well, I know that one household had 400 of them, and this little town produces the largest amount of figs in the country. They also have a fig festival. And of course, what's a festival without brandy in Eastern Europe? I have talked in the past about Palinka. It's our very own schnapps, brandy. They distill it here from figs, and it's only found here in this region. And in the jars on the side, you find fig jam. Just to put things in perspective, if you want to get 1 liter of Palinka, you need 10 kilograms of figs. Pretty concentrated, but pretty delicious. Back to our story. So our cruise ship travels through the iron gates of Romania. It's the region of the border in between Serbia and in our country. And of course, everyone is out. As I told you, it's good to be out, to look at the nature around you, maybe wave at the people, because the street on the Romanian side, it's right on the banks of the Danube. So it's nice to just wave at the people. And we see here on the deck 2 characters. We see Mihai Lupu and we see our witch Mira Varga. So she was really keen on the gold bracelet. So she approaches Mihai Lupu. I need some help in a delicate matter. Someone recommended I come to you. She wants him to help her get the bracelet without other people knowing. She wants him to be her thief. He was a recommendation. She called a friend that she knew in Romania. Just to give you a little bit of background, there's a big culture of white witches, both in Hungary and in Romania and in Balkan countries. So they know each other. And she called one from Mihai's village. And Mihai tells her, I've heard of the famous witch of Budapest. I wouldn't want to get in your way. What can I do? Sandra, coming out of the bathroom, she overhears this conversation that they're plotting to steal her bracelet. And obviously she's not too happy about it. We don't know anything else. We don't find anything else here. The day passes, and of course, in the evening, we see everyone dancing in the ballroom, and especially Sandra and Billy. Sandra's still wearing her bracelet. And at one point, the lights go out, and we hear Sandra screaming, "Leave me alone." The lights come back on, and we see Billy on the floor that says, "Someone took Sandra, help her." He's confused. He doesn't understand what happened. And this is where our scene finishes. So Sandra disappears. Someone took her from the dance floor. We don't know why, or we might know why. After Romania, this ship sails into Bulgaria. This is the last country out of the 5 that we're going to see tonight. Just so you understand, the Danube is the southern border of Romania. So you will travel along the banks, both in Bulgaria and Romania, for a long time. In Bulgaria, you will stop in a town called Ruse. And from Ruse, the ships stop, obviously. You see all the ships here in port. And you can go on different walking tours. One of the most beautiful fortresses that you get to see is in Veliko Trnovo, and it's called the Tsarevets Fortress. This is a medieval stronghold. It's located on the hill with the same name in northern Bulgaria. It's 206 meters high above sea level. That's almost 700 feet. It served as the Second Bulgarian Empire's primary forest and the strongest bulwark between 1185 and 1394. So not a very long period of time. It housed the royal and the patriarchal palaces. It's also a very popular touristic attraction today. The earliest evidence of human presence on this hill dates back to the 2nd millennium before Christ. It was settled in the 4th century. It was Byzantine up until the end of the 5th century. And then they started building the Bulgarian stronghold in the 12th century, obviously in medieval times. It has 3 entrances. The main entrance is located on the eastern side of the hill. The castle complex is located in the center. It's surrounded by stone walls. There are 2 battle towers. Of course, there's a throne hall. There's the castle church, which is imposing, almost as imposing as its tower. And of course, there's a king chamber. It was restored recently. It started in 1930s, and the restoration process took more than 50 years. It was completed for its 1300th anniversary from the establishment of the Bulgarian state. And in Bulgaria, maybe you've heard of moussaka before. Moussaka is typically a Greek dish, but the Bulgarians are famous for making a different version of the moussaka. So the Greek one is done with eggplants, and the Bulgarians do it with potatoes instead of eggplant. So you see layers of potatoes and in between minced meat. I would say that this is all heritage from the connections with the Ottoman Empire. But of course, one thing that I love about this region is that the cultures mix so well together. It's so cosmopolitan. And if Romanians have one dish, Bulgarians have maybe the same dish, but in a different version. So, you know, the little kebabs that you can have in Turkey, we have our version of kebabs. The Bulgarians have their own version of kebabs, but you're not going to get bored if you try them in each country because everyone has their own recipe, you know, a really delicious food anyway. In Bulgaria, we are finishing up our story, and we start with the steward going into the storage room the second day. And he finds Sandra. She is completely tied up. She doesn't know where she is. She has bruises on her face, obviously. She's still wearing the dress from last night. Then she groggily tries to open her eyes and she says, "Where am I?" Later on, we see her in the hospital, in the doctor's office. And the doctor tells Mr. Barbu and Mr. Jackson, obviously, who are by her bedside, she has clearly been drugged. Allow her to rest, please. The 2 men are obviously not happy, Mr. Jackson in particular. And he tells Mr. Barbu, her bracelet is missing. This is a robbery, and whoever did this hurt me and her, and I want them to pay. Mr. Barbu is a little bit... We'll start an investigation when we arrive on shore. He knows Mr. Jackson. He knows his temperament, his personality, and he knows that he wants this resolved right now. But he also wants to get the police involved in this. But Mr. Jackson doesn't take it. He said, "No, I don't want to wait. The bracelet is on board and I want it found now. Will you help me start an investigation? I know you have a good relationship with the ship's captain." In the meantime, Mr. Barbu goes knocking on Mr. Adams' door because he needed his help. He was an archaeologist. Of course, he had the knowledge. So Mr. Carter shouts at him. He tells him just enter the room. Inside the cabin, Mr. Barbu accidentally sees the papers on Adam's desk. He discovers a letter who was sent to him by the Ministry of Romania, who called upon oral archaeologists to help them discover the missing Dacian bracelets. So I told you they've only found 13. They needed 11 more to find. And of course, they needed the help of the archaeologists who understood their value, and especially of the archaeologists that had good relationships, good networking skills like Mr. Adam Carter. This was a private request from the Ministry of Romania, and they offered a huge reward for it for all the archaeologists that would come forward with one of these bracelets. Mr. Barbu finds this very confusing information because, well, the bracelet was missing, and now he started suspecting that maybe Mr. Carter took the bracelet to give it as a reward. He knows that archaeologists are pretty passionate and they want the artifacts to end up in museums, not in someone's collection who doesn't even care about them, like Mr. Jackson. So he doesn't know what to say. In the meantime, we have our character Mira, the Hungarian witch, who thinks that when Sandra disappeared and found again, but without her bracelet, she thinks that it was Mihai, the guy that she hired to get the bracelet. So she goes up to him and she says, job well done. I'm impressed. But Mihai has to disappoint her, and he says, it wasn't me. Someone went ahead of us. That leaves Mira a little bit confused because she thought she was the one that orchestrated the robbery. And this is where the cruise ship finishes. We arrive in Bulgaria. This is the area where this is the Bulgarian city, and this is the Romanian city, Giurgiu. And from here, you can go to into a Transylvanian trip. There's Saxon villages that you can see around. There's also medieval towns. I am actually covering all of these towns, Brașov, Sighișoara, and Sibiu in our Myths and Legends tour that we've done for Halloween. And you can see more details about these towns, because if I was to detail a lot more about this, we would have spent a lot more time together tonight. But do feel welcome to watch that recording again. And we are back on our cruise ship. So people are in Bulgaria right now. Typically, you would get out of the ship and head to the airport to go back home, because this would be the end of the river cruising, right? But the people were not allowed to go outside because Mr. Jackson wanted his bracelet found. He wanted an investigation. Mr. Barbu is the one that's doing all the interviews, all the investigation, and we see him talking to Mr. Lupu, Mihai Lupu, our bartender. Sandra tells Mr. Jackson, I can't wait any longer. I want to be out of this ship. Mr. Jackson tells her, we're not leaving until we get this solved. Mr. Barbu comes out and he tells us, I know who did this. So can you guess who stole our bracelet tonight? We have 6 characters, each of them with their own motive. So we have Mr. Adam Carter. He's our archaeologist. He wants the bracelet to be put in a museum. He was sent a private request from our ministry, from the Romanian ministry. If they were to help them out to retrieve the bracelets, he would get a big, big reward for it. We have Mr. Barbu. He is our Romanian count. He seems to know everyone. He is wealthy enough, but maybe he just has a passion for artifacts due to his good relationship with archaeologists. He is the one in charge of the investigation, but that's only because Mr. Jackson put him to it. We have Sandra, obviously. She is the one that used to work in a casino. She's Mr. Jackson's mistress. We know that he gives her a lot of lavish gifts, like the gold bracelet that was missing tonight, the Transylvanian artifact. But we also know that he doesn't give her any cash. So because she is poor, because he was a demanding man, he started being a demanding man. Maybe she was trying to find a way out of it. We have our Hungarian witch, Mira Varga, who found out of the powers of the bracelets aboard the ship. Her business was failing. She didn't have any more charms. She couldn't perform any more magic. So she needed a way to boost her powers once more. And she believed in the spiritual attributes that these gold bracelets had. We have Mr. Jackson, who is our billionaire, the Texas billionaire. He's the one that bought the bracelets from a private collector. But maybe he set himself up not to get into the cross hairs of the police investigations in case they wanted him to explain why he bought an illegal bracelet. And we have our bartender, Mihai Lupu, who was hired by Mira Varga to get the bracelet, to steal the bracelet from Sandra. He is the one that doesn't like rich people. He has he's a Romanian, so he has Dacian heritage. He believes that Romanian things should stay in Romania, and especially a gold bracelet like the one that you just saw on Sandra. So thank you for joining me tonight, but do let me know. I think Mara will start a poll to see if you can guess who stole our bracelet. And please, if you think you know the answer, do comment in the chat to let me know.
We have a lot of comments in the chat. And you'll see that some people think that it was Sandra herself, and she staged this whole big, I don't know, this big thing just to cover up. There's so many Sandras, I can't tell you, that are going through right now. But some people do believe that it was the bartender and he's just playing the game and saying that he didn't do it. They're all over the place. So I don't know if you're ready to share with us the back end story, but we do have a lot of people saying that it is Sandra.
Mm-hmm. Should I keep the mystery going for a little bit more?
I think it's up to you. I mean, there are some people that are now saying Tudor and
Tudor, Barbu,
yep.
Mihai, Sandra and the Witch, the White Witch. All right, so I will let you know. The answer is in the details. So if you remember, when Mr. Barbu first met Mihai Lupu, he looked at him and he found his face familiar, but he couldn't tell where he has seen Mihai before. Where actually he has seen Mihai before in the casino, where he met Sandra as well. But he remembered Sandra better because she started a relationship with Billy, his friend. But actually, Sandra and Mihai are lovers. So that's why they're aboard the same cruise ship. Mihai normally follows her wherever she goes on her private excursions with Billy, but they were lovers back on when they were working in the same casino in the United States. So that's what Mr. Barbu at the end, when he had the interview with Mihai, he realized where he has seen Mihai before. Another aspect, we saw Sandra while she was coming out of the restroom, she overheard the conversation that Mihai had with Mira. And you have to know that Sandra did not plan this at the beginning of the river cruise. She knew that she wanted to find a way to get rid of Mr. Jackson, of his demanding ways. She couldn't take this any longer, but at the same time, she wanted to find a way to exit with some money in her hand. And it was a little bit difficult because he would never give cash gifts, only, presents, jewelries and stuff like that. So she would have to leave, but it would have been too obvious to just leave with the jewelries because she knew that he would just follow her. And when she overheard that Mira, the witch, actually wanted the bracelet stolen from her, she couldn't believe her luck. And then she discussed with Mihai that night. She said, well, this is perfect. We have the perfect alibi. And I will just knock myself out, tie myself so that the steward finds me in the storage room the next day. So no one actually hurts her. And when the lights go out. It was Mihai that turned the lights out. She just starts screaming, leave me alone, and then knocks Mr. Jackson with something on his head to make it feel like someone else knocked him, but it was her. And then she left the room. So it was these two lovers that set up the robbery. And it was, just to get away from the situation. And they thought they had a very strong alibi with Mira. So well done. You have guessed. You have guessed our thief, but it was a combination. It was the two of them.
That's awesome. That's excellent. And you're right. Most people were following the story very well, and they felt like they had the robber down pat. So that's very cool. Thank you.
Perfect. I think, well done, everyone. You're getting better.
It was a lot of fun. I love the combination of the mystery and the cruise. We do have some questions that are coming up, and I will share the Q&A screen just so that we can get back into knowing that if you did appreciate this tour, you can feel free to leave a tip. There are many ways to do so. You could do it on my secure website with a credit card. You could do PayPal, Venmo, or any other means. If you want to send a check, even snail mail, you can PM me or email me for that address, and I'll share it with you. It is also shared in the chat and the Q&A. So if you do need to get that information, please check it out and send a tip over to Georgiana. We're going to go into Q&A. We do have some questions, Georgiana. Some of the questions relate directly to the cruise. One of the questions that I find very interesting, because I actually had to research this on my own, is what happens when the river level is too low? Are these boats built so that they can cruise no matter what? You know, do they have an 18-inch leeway, or what goes on with that? Do you know the answer to that question?
So the Danube is controlled by the dams. So the water levels, even if they fall, they won't fall drastically. So it would affect circulation on the Danube, especially on the region on the Iron Gates. The dam controls the levels. So
that leads to my next follow-up question. How many locks do you go through on the lower Danube or the upper Danube? I mean, are they very frequent? And do the boats have to sort of jockey for position and wait in turn to go through a lock? How does that all happen?
I think that's the only one, like on the lower Danube, I think the one in the Iron Gates is the only one. And yeah, of course, they would probably have to wait if it's a crowd, but it normally doesn't take a long time. So it's not like you typically wait for hours and hours to cross the locks.
So of course, we always have this question about weather and what is the best time to go to these regions. But I want to talk about what is the best time to go on a river cruise in these regions. And I know from myself, you know, I think about each season offers different experiences, right? So maybe talk a little bit about those experiences and the seasons.
Yeah, so the thing is that the seasons don't necessarily affect your experience, because all the amenities and all the river cruising, I mean, most of the river cruising experience happens indoors. Of course, there's the walking tours that you need to take in considerations too. But just as you would do a walking tour during winter and see the Christmas markets, that doesn't pose a problem for the river cruises. So you could go all year round if you wanted to. Obviously, the more preferred ones are the summer cruises that happen between May and September, but they will typically start even earlier than that. I would say April, even March, some of them. And of course, the Christmas markets are a really, really nice thing to do on a river cruise, because you just hop on and hop off from city to city. So yeah, I don't think weather is necessarily a very big influencer on the experience if you really, really want to go. And each season has its own charm.
You just served up a really good marketing tip for my river cruise, because we are doing the Christmas market river cruise in early December. And that leads me to another question on here. In early December, the weather, are we seeing snow, or is it just chilly? I mean, in this region, when does the snow hit mainly?
It can be in December, but not always. So we've had snowless Decembers, and then snow started falling down in January, February. But the region of the Danube, especially in Romania, the one where the Iron Gates are, is more Mediterranean. So the temperatures don't fall that low. And it's the same, I think it's the same situation with Serbia and Hungary as well. So you might get snow, but I wouldn't say it's typical for December necessarily.
So is the upper Danube actually colder than the lower Danube?
I would say yes. I would say yes. It's definitely colder.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about the mystery and the comics, right? So the question is, where did this mystery story originate? Obviously, it's based on a true story, but if you could talk a little bit about that. And then there were some questions about your artist and how you get this drawn up.
So I told you about the documentary. It's called The Hunt for Transylvanian Gold. If you Google, if you put that on YouTube, The Hunt for Transylvanian Gold, you'll come up with the documentary. It's about the Dacian gold bracelets, ancient artifacts. They were uncovered here in Romania. They were uncovered by villagers, and of course they wanted to make a quick buck, so to say. So they sold it, and they ended up in private collections. People didn't know what they had found. But yeah, in the end, they ended up in the possession of the Romanian government. They're in a museum now. But as I said, there are 11 more missing. And, you know, after our Orient Express tour, I figured, okay, let's do a lower Danube river cruise because it follows the same pattern. Like you have multiple travel stops and it's an attraction, a European attraction that people want to do. But at the same time, I wanted to add this mystery to it, this twist. And I know that most river cruises will do a Transylvania extension, will offer a Transylvania extension. And I figured why not do the connection here. The rest of the story, so the characters and the twist and the plot, that was designed by me. And the comics, I've used an illustrator. It's the same illustrator that I've used for Murder on the Orient Express. His name is Emilian. He's a Romanian. And we get along just fine. He really understands what I want to put in drawing.
It's a great combination. And I know that we know this, but I'm going to share that we will also, my group will also do a lower Danube River cruise where we end in Transylvania and in Romania, and we will meet up with Georgiana and Vlad to do a land tour in Romania. So we're really excited about that. That's going to come up, and we'll do that around Halloween so that we can actually do the Transylvania castle tour for Halloween. So I will look forward to that in the next couple of years.
I would be very excited to see people that have discovered me on the virtual tours, to see them live, you know, and share these stories with them too.
So fun. So a couple questions about the river cruise. How long are the stopovers when you go to a place? How long do you stay? And I'll answer this one about the river cruise, the bike tours. The bikes are provided on the river cruises so that you just sign up for a bike and you can take them off and bring them back. There's no rentals. They're part of the amenities that you have on the cruise. But why don't you talk to us a little bit about the stopovers, the tour guides, and how that happens when you get on and off the boat?
Yeah, so river cruises typically have local guides. They hire local guides for their walking tours. And whenever you stop in a new city, you would end up in the morning in that city so that they will give you the whole day for you to explore the location. The tours are prearranged. So once you're aboard the ship, they will give you options. Let's say if you want to do a bike tour, or if you want to do a wine tour, or if you want to do just a walking tour, there are different options laid out for you in the different cities that you're going to see along the way. And you just prearrange them with them. Once you are outside of the boat, there's a local guide that welcomes you and just shows you around town. So just as you mentioned, like what would be in Transylvania, if you were to come with Mara, I would greet you after you got off the ship, pick you up in the transportation, the private transportation that we would provide, and just take you around from beginning until the end to make sure that you have a great experience.
So one of the questions is about where you are with COVID right now and vaccinations or masks. Are you allowing vaccinated travelers into Romania? If so, are you still wearing masks? Do you have 100% capacity? What are you doing now?
No, so masks are no longer required outside. You still have to wear them in the inside. We do allow all travelers to enter the country if they had a COVID vaccination, or if they have a negative test, or if they had COVID in the past 90 days and technically they still have immunity. Of course, this depends from country to country. If we were to speak about the US in particular, if you've had the vaccine or if you meet any of the conditions above, you are free to enter. There are other countries who are on the red list. And I know the UK, for example, is on the red list right now because they have a different strain. But other than that, Romania is pretty open if you meet any of the conditions that I just mentioned.
And I think there was a question here that I may have accidentally omitted, but Vlad may have answered it on the back end, I'm not sure. But somebody was asking about favorite drinks in Romania. And I'm assuming we're talking about alcoholic drinks, wines, and alcoholic drinks. What are your favorites and what would the country be known for?
That's a difficult question because there's a lot of variety. So we do have a great wine region and we produce great red wines as well as white wines. And my favorite would be a red wine. It's a local type of grape. It's called Fetească Neagră. I would call it, like the translation is the dark maiden. It's similar to a Merlot, maybe in between a Merlot and a Pinot Noir. Delicious, and it makes for great conversations. And of course, we do make our own fruit brandies, like the one that we've mentioned, the fig brandy produced on the Danube spoilers. It has to be in my top favorites. But we do have like blackberry liquor or sour cherry liquor, all sorts of fruity liquors. And the Palinka, the distilled one, the clearer one, is made out of pears, plums, apples. So yeah, I would call these traditional drinks. Obviously, we do produce beer as well, in different regions. But if you were to ask for my favorites, I would say that's it: the red wine that I mentioned and the fig Palinka.
So a follow-up alcohol question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there extra charges on river cruises for alcohol, or is part of it included? And if so, how does that work?
It depends on the package that you purchase. So if it's an all-inclusive cruise, obviously the alcohol is included. If it's not, then the alcohol is not included. And I know they typically don't allow alcohol on board from outside. You have to buy it from them. But again, you have to, it depends on the package that you purchase.
Sure. Let's talk about the cruise a little bit. When you go through so many different countries, are there border checkpoints? Do people come on board and ask for documentation? How does the documentation work between countries when you're sailing?
That's a great question. I don't think there's anyone that comes on board. I'd have to do more research because it's between European countries.
Right.
And in the European Union, you don't have to show your passport at border control. I know Serbia is not part of the European Union, but they might have more relaxed entry conditions, especially for river cruises.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I wouldn't say there's a passport control. It's part of Romania is not part of Schengen area, but they will accept. We're open. Serbia is Schengen. I see someone commenting, yes, is it? Yeah, I think Serbia is Schengen, but Romania is not. So, but it's part of the European Union. So, if you don't have Schengen, but you have European Union. So,
yeah. And I see some people answering the alcohol question on cruises that mixed drinks aren't included, but that's not always the case. It depends on the package. It depends on the cruise line you're on. I know there are certain hours that they have happy hours and mixed drinks are part of the package. There was an interesting question, which I think that happens, but I'm not sure that the cruise lines love, but they asked, can you bring alcoholic beverages on? Meaning, can you buy liquor when you're off on a tour and then bring it back on? And of course, I'm sure people do that, right?
Yeah. I know I just looked it up. Serbia is not part of the Schengen area, but they do allow, if you have like a Schengen visa, they will allow you to enter. So.
Okay, so that leads us to the end of the tour. I'm going to let you recap one more time very quickly and clearly what happened with the guilty persons of this mystery, because there were some questions, maybe people weren't exactly clear on who done it. So can you just review for us one more time who done it before we say our goodbyes?
Yeah, so it was a missing part. It was subtle. Mr. Barbu recognized Mihai's face, so the bartender, and he recognized it because Mihai and Sandra were actually lovers when they were working in the casino in the United States, and they would always travel to, like, Mihai would always travel wherever Sandra would go with Mr. Jackson, and they planned for the robbery together, especially after Sandra overheard Mihai talking to Mira, the White Witch. She actually wanted the bracelet for herself. She arranged a robbery through Mihai, and then Sandra saw the opportunity, their exit opportunity, for them to escape, to steal the bracelet, to get the money off of it, and to pin it on someone else. So our robbers are actually Sandra and Mihai together, only because they saw the opportunity in the alibi provided by Mira.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you very much, Georgiana, for bringing your creativity with us. today, and also a wonderful cruise down the lower Danube.
Thank you everyone for participating. It was lovely to do this again.
And I'm sure some of you look forward to some postcards from Georgiana and Vlad,
exactly,
right?
yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Don't forget about our quiz. Do fill it in. I will send the winners handwritten postcards from Romania. We're trying to bring back the snail mail. So yeah, don't forget to try your luck there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. It was so nice to see you again, Georgiana. I'll talk
Nice to
to
see
you
you
soon.
too.
All
Have a
right,
good night.
bye-bye.